I am live on YouTube. This is so exciting. And we are going to talk about how to book your own high paying gigs. How to book your own gigs, because so many of you are wanting more gigs. And I remember when this was me as well. I was in my 20s, I was in the Bay Area, and basically the gigs that I would get would be ones that were handed to me. Maybe it was through somebody who knew me, maybe it was somebody who had seen me at an old, I'm going to put on Do Not Disturb. Maybe it's somebody who saw me perform and then they say, hi, do you do this kind of concert? Do you do home house concerts? Will you perform at my wedding? And I would say yes. So I was always waiting for somebody to present me with a gig. And maybe you have had that experience yourself where you're like, okay, where are the gigs? I just want more gigs. How do I get the gigs? When will the gigs come to me? Oh, I know I need to get an agent, and that is how to get the gigs. And yes, of course, there's a time in your career where having an agent or a manager is going to be a big help. But at the beginning, that's often not possible. You don't have the credits, or you don't really have the income to support that agent because the agent is going to need to take a cut of your proceeds. Or you have a bad experience with some pay to play agent. I have had that, which is a story for another time, and you've been burned by agents in the past. So, or managers. I would say in that case, it was a manager. So the question is, how do you book your own gigs? And particularly, how do you book high paying gigs? Because one of my clients and close friends at this point, actually, she was a close friend and then a client and a close friend, she is booking for her band gigs regularly in the 2 to 10K range. So she has absolutely booked. It was a back-to-back show that in one night. So it was one night, back-to-back shows, 10K for the band. And she travels all over the US. She has also traveled to other countries. She is the band manager and she is one of the lead vocalists. So she is the one that is doing all of the bookings and she is generating those bookings herself. And the process that she uses is the same process that I used when I was living in Florida to book $500 to $1,000 gigs. It was just me. So she has got a band and I was going out with myself or with a pianist and I was booking gigs in the $500 to $1,000 range. So this is absolutely doable, and it was the same step process that she uses that I use with some fine tuning. And we're going to talk through that process today. It's 5 very specific steps. And I'm going to give you those 5 specific steps. But first, I want to give you a little bit of a story to walk you through what this looked like in action. And then I'm going to break down the steps. So this story is exactly what I did back in Florida. So I was in the Bay Area and I was waiting for the gigs to come to me. I knew that there were gigs and I was starting to do wedding singing and a few funerals and I was doing Christmas caroling and I don't think I had done any house concerts at that point. And then I move to Florida and I start singing with a young artist program. And the director of that young artist program had us, the people, the singers in the program, go to put on concerts at various venues around Central Florida. And one of the venues was a restaurant, and another venue was a really upscale retirement facility called The Villages. You may even have heard of it, where we put on full-scale operas. And occasionally there would be maybe one in somebody's home. And we would get paid a small stipend through the company. So we were in this young artist program where we were getting lots of experience and we were performing operas, but we were also going around town doing these concerts, these group concerts. And I thought, this is interesting. I'm not in my 20s now. I'm just around 30 and I'm thinking a little bit more entrepreneurially. I have my own singing studio. I teach singing, so I have a voice studio. And that's working great. And I'm like, what if I booked some gigs for myself? I kind of feel like, we're not getting paid all that much for these gigs. And partly that's because it was spread out through a number of people. And I don't remember exactly what put it into my head, but probably that some of the venues we were singing at were retirement centers. And in Florida at this time, and probably still today, a lot of people go to retire. And these retirement communities are not necessarily like the place for quite elderly people who need a lot of care. These are actually active adult type communities where the type of music that I specialized in that time, opera, the legit musical theater, Rodgers and Hammerstein, that was really appreciated. That was like the dream kind of songs for the people at the retirement communities to hear. And so I got it into my head that possibly I should reach out myself to the director of one of these retirement communities and pitch myself. So what are some of these words? Pitching yourself, basically cold selling, like, hi, introduce, and then say, this is what I do. Would this be something that you would be interested in? And so that is what I did. And I think I'm going to go now through the steps, and at the same time, I'll illustrate what it was that I did to get this very first gig. So the first gig that I booked in Florida was at one of these upscale retirement communities. And I booked myself with an accompanist for $500. So that was my very first gig. And this was a while ago. So the equivalent today, that $500 was probably like, I don't know, $750 or $1,000 if we go with the inflation, especially inflation right now. So this was in the early 2000s that I did this. The thing is that nothing has changed in terms of this 5 steps, because like I said, this is how I booked that first gig, but it's also how my client books the gigs today, traveling with her band. So these are proven steps that worked then and still work today. So the first thing that I did was I put together, and this is step number 1. I put together my materials. And the materials looked a little bit different then than they would look today. So this you could think of as your digital business card, your digital calling card. Now, at this time, it was really not digital. I put together a packet. And the thing is that you can still do this and it will actually make you stand out. If you put together a physical package, which you actually delivered to the decision maker at a venue that you were interested in, that will actually make you stand out, because everybody is just sending cold emails with basically nothing to support it. So you can combine these two methods, old school, new school, old school, digital school. So let's say that we call these your promotional materials, and they could be your digital calling card. They could also be your press kit. That's a physical thing that you hand over. And what should be in it? So at the time when I was booking this first concert, this is what I did. I put together the physical thing, the physical packet. And inside there was like my bio. There were a couple ideas of concert list, like this. It could be this concert called this. It was like Bellissima, that's like mostly Italian opera. And it could also be Rodgers and Hammerstein's Delight. I don't remember the exact name, but it was something Rodgers and Hammerstein. And then it was like, this would be the show list for that concert. So I had lists of potential concerts. I had a pricing sheet, like you could get a half an hour concert or an hour concert. You could get it with accompanist, or you could get me with a backing track. I was actually using backing tracks back then as well. And then it also had a physical CD in it. Now, and if you have if you have write-ups, if you have reviews, you could put clippings in there as well. But you say it's not that much, right? It's just like a bio of your experience and the kinds of things that you might perform for them, and then some way for them to actually listen. Now, at the time, I also had a website, and so I linked to that and I included the website. Today, the website is not necessary because you have your social media. So you could have a website, you could have social media, or you could have both. But in either case, you want the social media or the website to represent whatever your brand kind of is. So in my case, it would maybe be more classic, glamorous shots that make me look like an opera singer. And for you, maybe it's like more indie, alt, rock, whatever it is that would well represent you. Or if you're a dancer, then it would be you in, dance costume or whatever really represents the kind of performing that you do is on your website, is on your social media. So that's now the digital part of the calling card. And images are super important as well. So you put all that together, and that's step number one. But at the same time that you're putting all of that together, you're also going to be researching the venues. Now, when you research the venues, you can be creating some kind of Google tracking sheet, or you can create that tracking sheet anywhere. You could even have it handwritten. And on the tracking sheet, you're going to list out the venues that you want to perform at. And you're going to start calling those venues to find out who is the decision maker. So this first call, it can just be from their website. It can also be cold calling the places. That's not you pitching. This is you just gathering information. Okay, what's the right number to call? Who is the decision maker at this venue? So if you are calling, for example, churches to find out, well, who hires the singers at the churches? Is it the wedding coordinators, or is it somebody actually affiliated with the church? If it's the wedding coordinators, which wedding coordinators do you often work with at this, does this church work with, for example? Or it's another wedding venue that often has live music. It's like, who's the person that is hiring the live music? Is that the venue, or is that the wedding coordinator? Oh, okay, so wedding coordinators. So which are the wedding coordinators that you work with a lot? And then now you're fine-tuning your list. So now you've got a list of wedding coordinators that are doing venues that are doing weddings at a number of the venues that you are interested in performing at. Okay, so now you've got your research done, you've got your marketing materials done. So that's step one and step two that can absolutely be done at the same time. Now you're at step three. So you're past the research and you're past the creation of your materials, and you start your outreach. So this is step three. Now that you are at step three, this is where you are actually pulling up your big person pants and going, I am brave. And you put on your Sarah Bareilles and you listen to Brave, or you listen to Confident, or you listen to the Sia one about, I'm blanking, but I love that song. And let me know in the chat if you are knowing which Sia song I'm talking about. And then you start calling, and you just call, and you cold call. So let's go back to my story. I called I did the exact process I just told you, steps 1, 2, and 3. I put my materials together, and then I did my research. I found out who were, and this for the community, for the active living centers, you find out who is the activities director. That was the name. So I was like calling the place, and I would get the reception, and I would say, what is the name of your activities director? And they would tell me, and I would say, thank you very much. And then I would hang up, because that wasn't the call where I was going to be pitching myself. Then I've got everything ready, and I'm ready to start making my calls. Okay, I can do this. Ooh, I can do it. Yes, I can. Okay, I can do it. Okay, pick up the phone. And this was not a cell phone. It was a do. Okay. And then I would get the receptionist, and I would say, hi, is name of activities director there? And they would say yes or no. And I would say, if they say yes, I would say, may I speak to them? And they would say yes. And then, because there wasn't a big gatekeeper in front of the activities director at a retirement community. There's also no big gatekeeper in front of the wedding coordinators, right? Like, you have direct access to this type of gig. And a lot of the time, we don't realize that these kinds of gigs can pay a lot of money depending upon your market. So I was shell-shocked when I moved from Florida to Los Angeles to discover that the amount of budget they had for their gigs was like, in Los Angeles was way lower than what it was in Florida. So depending on your market, this definitely does impact. But maybe in Los Angeles, the budget for the wedding coordinators would have been a lot higher. I don't know because I didn't pursue it. But you look in your market where what's going on locally, and a lot of the time there's a bigger budget than you would assume. So I go, okay, and then she answers, and I say, hi, my name is Fiona Flight, and this is, I'm an opera singer, and I put on these concerts, and it's such a good match for your residents because I know so many of them love Rodgers and Hammerstein, and they love, Puccini, and this is what I sing. And I would just love to come in and introduce myself to you in person and show you some of my materials. And to that, she said, sure. And I said, could we make a time to meet? And she said, sure. And so I came and I said, great. And we made a time to meet and I hung up. So I didn't direct pitch over the phone. I just made it a very easy yes. So I did a very easy ask. Do you see how I did this step by step? So the first ask was reception. What is the name of the decision maker? And you don't use the word decision maker. You should already know what that position is called. What's the name of that person? Okay, that was the first ask. Very easy. Call again, ask for that person, and then I asked for a meeting rather than saying, please hire me over the phone. So then I remember so well, I had a boom box. It was not high tech at all. It was like, a relatively cheap little boom box. It was purple and it was like this big, and I carried it like this. And I had, and it played both tapes and CDs. Tapes, can you imagine? So I carried my boombox and I carried the little folder that I've created of materials for her into her office. And I say, hello, I'm Fiona Flight. And, here's my materials. Take a look. It's so nice to meet you. So she looks at my materials, and then I say, may I play for you one of my songs? And so I had a demo. This would be one of the things that you're putting together back in step one, when you're putting together your materials. I say, here, I just would love to play this for you. And then I remember sitting through all of Quando Men Vo, which was the song that I had put to play for her, which is a famous Puccini aria. And I just sat there and listened, and she listened, and that created rapport because we're doing this thing together. If you can imagine, I'm like, oh, is it too long? Is it, I hope she's, not bored. Oh, this is long. I'm just sitting here. This is long. This is long. This is long. Okay. But I kept all that to myself. And actually there were two contrasting, and the other one was a really upbeat, funny musical theater number. And I think I probably played both of them. And by the end of this, it's like, well, yeah, you've absolutely proved that you have the talent for the venue and you have lovely personality and we've created rapport and you present yourself well. Why wouldn't I hire you? You're hired. And that's what happened. That was it. That was it. So that was the outreach section. And I'm going to give you a little bit more details on the outreach. But first, I want to tell you, so I'll give you a little bit of more details on this section of outreach, because what if you don't get into the person immediately? So what do? You call again and you send a follow-up email, and then you call again and you ask questions. You can do some of that stuff in the original research mode. You can ask questions about their budget, and you can use a script for your phone calls and your in-person, not so much for the in-person meetings, but you can have like a little checklist of things that you're asking as you're collecting your information. So then step 4 is the follow-up. And so maybe somebody doesn't commit to you in that meeting, or maybe you don't get an in-person meeting, you're just communicating by email, which totally may happen. People are busy. And also now COVID, people don't meet as much in person as they used to, but you could invite them to a Zoom meeting and you follow up. So step 4 is follow up, 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 follow up. If somebody says not now, then you mark it on your calendar to reach out again in 3 months. If they say not ever, like this doesn't feel like a fit, you reach out in 1 year and you say, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm wondering if this might now be a fit. But my point is that you don't take no for an answer inside. So if one person says no, you call the next person on the list. If that person says no, you call the next person on the list. If you don't reach somebody, if you leave a message, you call again. You leave a message, you call again, you call again. This is all about that perseverance of like really committing yourself, believing in yourself, believing in your talent, believing in what it is that you have to share with the world, whichever venue, whatever type of audience it is that you particularly are meant to be performing at. So then step 5 is to get referrals. And the awesome thing, when I wasn't even thinking about this in my, when I was thinking about my story, I wasn't even realizing this. I had already put the training out and I was like, okay, after you've done the follow-ups and now you've done a performance, step 5 is to get the referrals from that venue or that decision maker to other ones. And that's exactly what happened to me as well. So that very first gig, it was amazing. I loved it. And I said, do you have any referrals you could give me to other activity directors? And she said, in fact, I do. We have a sister community and we exchange people all the time. So I immediately got my second gig just by saying, I just performed there and she recommends me. Would you like to have me? And they said yes. And now I have 2 $500 gigs on my schedule. And then I said, when would you like to have me back? Which is one of the things that my client is doing as well. She has got regular gigs in multiple places in Los Angeles, also in I don't remember the exact cities in the middle. There's some middle of the country. There are several. There's Seattle. There's New York. There are places where she and her band perform. There's one in Northern California, consistently throughout the years, multiple times. So she has multiple consistent gigs, repeat gigs from those places, and then can also network, like I'm suggesting, and say, is there anybody else that manages a jazz club? Because that's where she usually performs. Or do you have any connections to any other local or national or international jazz clubs that you think we would be a good fit for? The moment that you go somewhere and you perform well and the audience enjoys it, you make that venue and that decision maker look good. And so at that point, you have a great deal of goodwill coming towards you from them. And they will want to support you. And I mean, it would be very inhuman for them not to want to say, well, yeah, actually, there's this one or that one. It's a very natural thing. So going back through the list, I just want to give you these 5 steps one more time. So step 1 is to put together your materials. And that can be either completely digital, or you could literally stand out by making it a combination of digital and something physical, because that's so unusual. You could give them and then you could also combine the digital and physical by giving them a thumb drive, is that what it's called? A memory card that has got, and you could make it branded, which is like a whole cool thing. And you could put all of your digital materials on that little thumb drive and give them that. That could be cool too. And then you research your venues. And when you're researching your venues, you're making lists of the venues, you're getting names of decision makers. And in some cases, if you know somebody that has already performed at that venue, you're getting referrals directly from that person that you know as well. So when I was singing a lot in Florida, for example, my pianist was also a harpist. We would bring each other. I had several pianists, but this one we had a lovely partnership, and she had a much wider network than I did in Florida because she'd been there longer. And so she would make introductions for me in times when they just wanted a singer. And we would also bring each other to each other's gigs. So if she needed an additional singer, she would bring me. If I needed a pianist, I would bring her, or a harpist. And so connecting with colleagues and networking in that way is beautiful. And so that was step 2, is researching your venues. Step 3 is the outreach portion. This is all action, but at the outreach portion, that's when it's like, okay, I was doing action on my own, and now it's like I'm out in the world doing the action. I am making these calls. I am emailing. I am introducing myself. I am putting together the questions, and I'm asking questions that I need answered, and in order to know whether I should even move forward. Because if their budget is $50 and your minimum is $175, then that's good to know, and you might refer them to someone else, but it's not the right gig for you. So asking questions and remembering that it has to be a dream fit for both of you. You have to want it, they have to want it too. You don't have to take everything. And then a mindset thing, just remembering that you are adding. You're not detracting. You're not taking their money. You're not taking anything away from them. You are adding. They need artists. They need performers, and they need great performers, and they need performers who have the guts to put themselves out there and say, hey, this is a perfect venue. I think this is a win-win. I would love to come in and introduce myself, to meet you, and tell you a little bit about what I do. I mean, that's just amazing. It's amazing to come out and do that. And so that's where it's like you're really building confidence in yourself long term by having the guts to do this in the first place. So that's step 3, the outreach. Step 4 is the follow-up. You just want to not give up. You want to follow up and follow up and follow up. If it doesn't happen like this, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means you're following up until it does. And then step 5 is where you are getting the referrals. You're like, okay, this was amazing. And how can we do this again here? And do you have anyone else that you would like to refer me to that you think would be, because they will look good by referring you because you were amazing. So you were amazing and they appreciated it. And now they're going to look great and do somebody a favor by referring you somewhere else. So don't forget to ask, because they might not think of it. But once you ask, it's like, oh yeah, I do have someone. And she in Portland would be a great fit. And that club in Nevada, would be an amazing fit. So ask. The big takeaway that I really want you to get from this is that it's your self-belief plus action. It's your mindset plus the strategy. So you've got to have the guts to do this in the first place. But provided you have those, you have the guts, provided you take the action. This is a step-by-step strategy that is proven to work. Like, it's not brain science. It's very clear, step by step by step, and I'll add it in the description as well. Very simple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-step process. It works. But if you make 2 calls and you don't get booked, then absolutely you're going to be like, this doesn't work, and then it won't. But if instead you think, okay, I tried twice and I'm going to keep trying until I book a gig, then it is absolutely going to work, because this strategy works. It's just a question of what energy are you bringing to it. And I mean, I hope you'll take this on, and I hope you'll really go for it. In terms of the high paying part, that's mindset and action again. It's the same thing. It is the self-belief. It's the confidence. It's you sitting in your knowing that if you're offered the $50 budget, you say no. And your gig is not, unless it's 500 or 1,000 or 750 or 350 or 2,000, whatever is your budget. This is how you book the high paying gig. It's coming through, doing the exact same steps, but with all of that confidence behind you. I hope that is really, really, really landing. I'm going to check to see. I couldn't see the comments. Thanks, James. And so this live training today is the day 15, if you can believe it, of my live storytelling series. So this was a live training that combined storytelling and a training. And so if you're interested in watching some of the other stories, you will find them mixed up on all my different places, on Instagram, on Facebook personal page, on Facebook business page. So follow me in all of those places, and definitely subscribe here to the channel if you're not already subscribed. And I will link my other links, I'll put them in the description as well. Now, on Friday, I'm doing another live training, a story plus a full training on another topic that is useful to performing artists. And so that is going to be in my Facebook group. This is a free Profitable Performer Facebook group. I will link to that in the description. And I highly recommend that if you're not already a member of that group, that you come on and join us. It is completely free. There are a lot of amazing archive trainings in there, and every day I'm in there with inspiration and motivation and strategy around building your business as a performing artist. The last thing that I wanted to tell you about today in the context of booking your own high-paying gigs is my program, the Profitable Performer Revolution. So that is a paid program, an absolutely phenomenal paid program that takes you all the way through the mindset, the marketing, and the monetization in 3 phases that you need to build a truly profitable business as an independent artist. Because I don't believe in like, oh, I'm an indie artist because I'm like not with a label or a manager. I believe in, and I want to help create independent artists because you also are free. You have financial freedom, you have freedom of all kinds, you have time freedom, you are free, you are independent. And that's what, when I say I work with independent artists, that's what I mean. I help to create truly independent artists inside the Profitable Performer Revolution. So that is a year-long program, and I will include a link to that as well. So feel free to message me. You comment here if you have questions. Message me over on Facebook or DM me on Instagram if you want to have a conversation. And that's today's training, but I just would love to take this deeper with you, whether in my free content or in my paid program. I would love to deepen this with you so that you can become a profitable performer. Now, go out into the world and let your light shine. You have a voice, you deserve to be heard, and the world deserves to hear you.